Welcome to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Ain't another place that has got more bombast. Romp past your mom, dad's listening to Tomcats. Talking everything that make you sad. We don't want that. We're here to make you smile. Put your mind at ease. Peace, love, and bloom, and always praise Keanu Reeves. This what we about. This some weeding now. We'll talk until we can't no more, and then we peacing out. Alright, let's go. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. It's the Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast. Penny Bloom Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the Penny Bloom Podcast. Today, we continue our comic book movie journey through film with Thor. It was released on May 6th, 2011, with a story by Mark Protasevich and J. Michael Straczynski, a screenplay by Don Payne, Zach Stentz, and Ashley Miller, and directed by Kenneth Branagh. I am Colton Robertson. I am joined by Joseph George. What's up, homie?
Oh, what up, what up? Always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you, and welcome back to Varus Pennington. What's up, buddy?
How goes it? Having another good day?
Oh, fuck yes. It's an especially good day today. I'm a big fan of Thor. I've always this is, Joseph in recent weeks when we've talked Iron Man has talked about his nostalgic attachment to Tony Stark and how it goes back a long ways. This is that one for me.
I see.
I know, sure as shit, I watched this when I was 11. I can't say that I watched Iron Man when I was 8. I can't say that I watched Iron Man 2 when I was 10. It was a couple years before I made it to those. But I did watch Thor before I watched, the Avengers. The Avengers was my introduction to both Captain America and Iron Man, but I had seen Thor.
Okay.
And I love Thor. I love Thor. That's the point I'm making. How are we feeling? How are we feeling about this one? Tavares, how you feeling about Thor?
This one was interesting. I was realizing Thor is one of those trilogies in the MCU that I didn't necessarily pay attention to as much as the other ones. So I don't think I've really watched Thor maybe but once or twice. So it felt almost like a new movie in a lot of ways, but actually focusing on it and kind of understanding where some of these characters' plot lines end up and how they start. So it was a fascinating watch, honestly. It felt so reflective of 2011, if that makes sense. Like, it seemed like a lot of the areas where we may say that looks cheap now, that was just kind of like the beginnings of a style that got tired out by the Marvel movies that came after Thor. So it was cool to see those themes from that perspective again.
No, fuck yeah. Joe, how you feeling fresh off this watch of Thor?
I'm kind of like in the middle of you two when it comes to Thor. I don't know exactly when the first time I would have watched it. I knew Iron Man was that was my guy. I mean, I remember I loved Tony, but Thor, I mean, who can hate Thor? Especially as a young boy, I'm like, this is God. This is literally everything. I like Tony, but if I could choose to be a person in the MCU, I think at this point it's pretty easily Thor.
Yeah.
So I mean, I watched Thor before I watched the Avengers. Cap was the only one I didn't. So I watched Iron Man and Thor. I didn't get Cap. Cap was first introduced to me in Avengers, but Thor I don't have as long of a history as I do with Iron Man, but it's still a great one with Thor. I've never hated Thor, and I've even the Dark World, which we haven't gotten to yet. I've always loved every Thor movie, and people calling it one of the worst in the MCU is just kind of. I think when you get into elves and frost giants and it's super fantasy, it just turns some people off.
There's a lot of things about this one. I mean, I'm astonished that this was the fourth MCU movie. Obviously, it's the first time. The next time they take a swing like this outside of Thor isn't until 2014 with Guardians of the Galaxy. They don't do anything of this grandeur and this, I don't know.
The cosmic element.
Yeah, really, and not just that, but stylistically, Kenneth Branagh is a pretty unique filmmaker in that he makes a lot of sense for this Shakespearean Thor, as like a lot of his first 5 movies were adaptations of Shakespeare's work. His first directorial debut was Henry V, and he did Much Ado About Nothing and a bunch of other Shakespeare adaptations, and he also did Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which isn't Shakespeare, but it comes from that same era of literature, like it's old.
Shakespeare and Frankenstein, and kind of that's comic booky kind of there. That's
a little bit of a comic book.
It's kind of a Thor vibe. I like that.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I think that this movie it has a similar problem to Iron Man 2 for me, in that it has trouble finding the tone it wants to take a lot of the time. I feel like I think it spends a lot of time bouncing back and forth between, Asgard and Earth. And I think that tonally, there's some visual language stuff that works on Asgard that doesn't work when we get to Earth. And there's like a maintained continuity in the visual language, and it doesn't really work for me, which I know, like, I'm talking those Dutch angles. Like, when we're going to like Dutch angles on Asgard, the camera tilts fucking 30 degrees one way or the other. Like, on Asgard, it almost feels like that makes sense. It's heightened, it's fantasy, it's out there. But then we get down to Earth, and we're still doing that in like the most mundane circumstance. And it's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if we need that,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like overwhelmingly used. Like, it's crazy how much everything is just angled. And like, yeah, I think like Asgard for 2011, like, it looks incredible. Like, it was like, visually, whenever we were in Asgard, I was down with it. But
I'd say these are the best visual effects we've gotten in the MCU so far.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I would stress, though, the visual effects specifically, because there was some of that like fight CG that was going on that looked like Flash from the 2014 like television show, and I was just like,
whenever he starts like swinging the hammer super fast and the ice like shoots up like in all the directions, it's like, yeah, it's cool, but like it kind of looks a little 2011.
It looks like a highly what's invested in like TV show. Which I was like, maybe that was highly budgeted. Is that like, maybe that was the norm at that point in time? I can't remember, because they've just gotten so insane with that kind of thing in movies.
No, yeah, it's I think that there's an interesting thing with this where, there was one in my head that really stuck out, and it's when Heimdall takes down the 2 frost giants towards the end, when he busts out of his ice and stuff. I mean, he is very clearly a CG character model as he does it. And that's fine. I don't really, when it comes to like realism and CGI, I think there's a line, like in Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2, it is important that you get a degree of that like realism. Like you feel grounded in reality. You feel like this is a real thing that's happening. It's tangible. It's right in front of you. When it comes to Thor, I'm okay with a little bit more of like that suspending belief, because we are on Asgard and we are doing some crazy funky shit, and if it can't, but don't get me wrong. Like, there are certain things in this movie that if they did it now, it would still look better, even if it was heightened fantasy, like, it certainly had that feel, but
I'd say too, an important element about this movie is that it was kind of, from what I remember, I don't remember what point in the MCU phase 1 this was, but it was pretty early on. So it was one of those points where we were realizing like, oh, Iron Man isn't just going to be a standalone movie or whatever. Like, we're going to have an actual universe associated with this, where we're getting all these kinds of heroes, and so like we're starting to see some of those characters bleed over into other franchises, which was just the thing that wasn't happening at that point in movies. So that was like a big part of the excitement that was kind of renewed for me in watching it.
Yeah, no, this one makes me nostalgic as shit, like I said, and I do appreciate the beginnings of this universe, and like you said, this is early on, but whereas like phase 4 was like, what, 17, 18 fucking things, like 6 movies and 8 TV shows or whatever the fuck. The first phase was 6 movies. It was Iron Man, Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, the Avengers. And that's neat.
It's very nice. It's so great. It's simple, but more than the average movie will do. Like at that time, 5 movies all connected to each other. Like you usually get a trilogy for some things, like big franchises, whatever. But like this, I felt the connectedness like a lot this time. Coulson, at the end of Iron Man 2, he leaves and it's something in New Mexico, something like that, whatever. And that, we see Coulson and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hawkeye. Hawkeye, I think, is hilarious, like to introduce like this way. He literally doesn't even shoot a fucking arrow. He just is like on Thor the whole time. He's like, hey, I can take him if you want me to.
That's a really good point. I hadn't considered that in Hawkeye's debut in the universe, he probably should shoot an arrow.
He literally hops in a little crane box, goes up, and just has his eyes on Thor. It never fires, and it doesn't show anything of what he can do. And I think that's just hilarious.
Clint Barton, baby.
Like literally in the movie, if you don't even know it's Hawkeye, Coulson says, "All right, I need a man with a gun in the sky," or something like that, and he goes to grab like a sniper, but then he's like, "No, bow." And it's like, is that like really supposed to be like Hawkeye moment? Because like, how the fuck would you know? Like, they don't say anything that it is Hawkeye.
His origin story is like, no sniper today, a bow. Like,
I don't know.
I think that's one of those more like deep cut moments for Marvel comic fans, where if you're watching this in 2011. You are unfamiliar. You've been reading comics for years. You go to the Thor movie. There's a dude who runs up, reaches for a gun, thinks about it, grabs a bow, and then like the people who are familiar with Hawkeye at that point are going, "Wait."
That's true. I guess they're.
At that point, they didn't have to try nearly as hard to pull those things off either. It was just like literally any mention, any reference whatsoever, and people are screaming.
That's true. Because like even. Stellan Skarsgård is like, I had a colleague that worked in gamma radiation. It's like, okay, cool little mention of Bruce Banner. Apparently, a deleted scene. He also goes on to mention Hank Pym, I guess, but they got rid of that, which is interesting.
Yeah, there's a bunch of interesting stuff from the early MCU where they had intentions of introducing certain characters a lot earlier, but they didn't. Shang-Chi was conceptualized to be like this early on, like
wow,
maybe fresh off the Avengers. Like it was going to be like 10 years before it actually happened. And as you said, Hank Pym, Captain Marvel was originally supposed to, like, they have a deleted scene from like Age of Ultron, or Carol Danvers is at that little group at the end whenever it's like new Avengers teaming up, Captain America and Black Widow are leading them and stuff. Like there's all sorts of those examples where they're like, well, we can go ahead and save that for later,
Well, and for good reason too, because I think one of the great things about these early MCU movies is how, while they're connected and they feel more expansive than things that you'd seen to that point, it still felt small. Like the stories and scale still were pretty contained, which allowed you to get invested in the characters as individuals and not as part of the MCU, which is just like an essence, I think, that is kind of lost on them at this point.
Oh, 100%. I wish the MCU would still show this sort of restraint instead of, like I said, they thought about all these people being introduced this like so early on, and they had the restraint to go, well, we're probably not going to get to that for a long time. Maybe we hold off on that, but like in Eternals, we're like, here's fucking Star Fox. Here's Harry Styles. We'll see when we ever pull that off. At the end of Spider-Man Homecoming, they're like Michael Mando as Scorpion, maybe? Nah, we'll never touch that. That was fucking...
Wesley Snipes is like Blade voice cue for like Dane Whitman, right? Like having that's not come back up. The fucking what are they called? Celestial that was inside of Earth that is now hanging outside of Earth hasn't been touched whatsoever. That's just taking up an ocean now. Who the fuck cares?
Nobody talked about it.
Yeah, it's like
passing.
It's kind of crazy. Like in the new Thor Love and Thunder, it's like Gore the God Butcherer. We thought like, I don't know. I didn't think he just would or whatever. It's just like cool villain for the movie, but like a lot of stuff in there that was just brought up and
incredibly underdeveloped. But yeah, like that's the thing, is that there's all sorts of stuff that the MCU could benefit from showing the sort of restraint that they did early on. And I know that it's a completely different game now. Like it's obviously
business-wise, They're on movie 4 right now, so it's compared to what the fuck
but
are we on now?
Post Endgame, would it have been the worst idea to return to a sort of Phase 1 format and try to recreate that sort of vibe? Like,
no, I think they saw the dollar signs and never looked back. I think they were like, oh, if we bring in more people, more money. It's as simple as that.
More movies, more shows. Yeah. If we put more money into everything, maybe we'll get more money out of everything. Yeah, no, but like, regardless, I don't want to make this a conversation about the old MCU versus the new MCU, but it's hard when you're talking about a movie like this, because this does sort of, I've said it with every passing movie. Iron Man 2 kind of set the tone for what MCU movies modernly have kind of become, in terms of Tavares was talking about the family friendliness that they kind of brought to the table, and they wanted to put the cash in the bank, and this was the first risk. I know Iron Man was a risk. Like it's
not really though. I mean, it's like they were very safe movies to, if you want to call it a risk, it's a very safe risk. But Thor, it's a
big swing. I would say like the risk on Iron Man at all is just that the company was on the brink of bankruptcy and they don't have the rights to any of their characters movie wise, so they had to pull off what at the time was like a C-lister in Iron Man. Like Iron Man is only an A-lister because of Robert Downey Jr. and what these movies did. But at the time, I mean, like he had a cartoon in the 90s and shit, and he was obviously a very big comic character for a long time. But, you can ask random people on the street. They know Hulk. They know Spider-Man. They know Wolverine. At the time, they didn't know fucking Iron Man. You know what I'm saying? Now they do. Yeah. But this was an even bigger this is an even bigger swing than that. I think that it captures an interesting tone that I think, like Guardians of the Galaxy eventually sort of follows up on with the cosmic sort of side of the universe. And to a degree, Captain Marvel as well later on. But there's a fun tone set here for what the larger universe looks like, and how like there are other realms and other planets, and there's so much going on in this universe that we don't know about, and I love that.
Yeah. According to Kenneth Branagh, am I saying that right? Branagh?
Yeah.
For one, I only know him as an actor. I didn't know that he was like behind the scenes a lot. Just from the Nolan movies. But as far, as according to him, Odin was the like god. He was the top dog in the MCU. Like when he was making this movie, that I guess is, I don't know if he was told that. I don't know if that's just what he went with. But like it's crazy. Like that I can watch this movie and be like, oh, they could actually maybe like call back on some of these things for the future, like MCU projects, like, and I can go, down the rabbit hole with that. But at the end of the day, I got to remember that it's like, this was 2011. We are in 2023. Movies will be coming out in 2024. Like this, they did not plan all this shit in 2011. No. So like, not at all. But they can act like they did, sort of thing. Like they can act
like they've been doing for fucking 10 years.
Yeah, like they're fixing plot holes with other explanations and sort of things like that. And I love I just love going in on Odin and Loki. And after Loki season 2, my main like kind of question is like, how involved will they be with this new Loki stuff? Is it just done and it's just like that's how the universe works now, and we're opening up everything, or are they going to be like, well, no, like this was part of Odin's plan, like his larger plan for Loki, like he banished Thor to Earth to learn a very, very valuable lesson, and and then he teaches Thor many more lessons after that, like you are not the god of hammers. That's a very valuable lesson for him. But Loki, I like it seems that it could be like a very, very long kind of term lesson that he's setting him down a path.
Yeah, like you got the master manipulator, the master mischief, the god of mischief. Why not teach him a lesson through manipulation and mischief over the course of
And is he just the god of mischief? It seems after Loki season 2 that he like is the time stone. Like, I mean, he is literally like, he just had the ability to time slip and like he's always had that. It's kind of like a Thor moment when he's like, "Oh, I don't need the hand. I can just harness the power of lightning." Loki seems to have the ability to harness the power of time just innately. So like I wonder if it's kind of that sort of thing, because I mean I'm a firm believer Odin had every stone at one point. Maybe not all of them at the same time, but this dude's been around. And he's the god of gods. He's fucking top dog. So like it feels that like somehow Loki was imbued with the time stone or something like that, and Thor was imbued with the space stone. I don't know. Something of the sort is kind of where my theory goes, but it seems that they're kind of fucking just done with Infinity Stones anyways, that they don't really matter anymore.
Yeah, at this point, but regardless, I mean, like it's a fun rabbit hole to go down. The theories you've been spinning as it regards to Odin go back fucking years at this point. You've been on that one for a while.
I have been.
So it's fun when Loki kind of gives you a little bit more to go on, and
it did. I agree.
I'll be excited to see how the theory evolves over the course of Dark World and Ragnarok and stuff, because I'm curious if anything will kind of poke a hole in what you think, because you haven't watched them in a while.
That's true. Nothing's really like in this movie. It was like just small things. It was like, ooh, Loki could have time slipped here. Like it would have been really cool if he came back just to talk to Thor, and you were like, well. He really didn't say anything nice to him, and I'm like, yeah, that's actually true. Like so it's like a lot of things just don't really work whenever you start to think about it too hard.
You could do a thing where like maybe he time slips at some point just to look at his brother, just to see his brother. Not necessarily talk to him, but just to see him one more time.
That one's the only part of the movie where I'm like, it's either a plot hole or something else is going on that Loki just has an ability to, because like whenever the Warrior 3. I mean, like, what the fuck is that? Why is Sif like not in the? Why is it not like the Warriors 4? Why is it just 3? Like, is it just because she's a
Lady
woman?
Sif and the Warriors 3 are like they're separate entities, and I think this movie just brought them together.
I don't know. They just seemed like a group. I don't know, like always, and I'm like, why is she not like included in this?
No, Warrior? I think typically they're like comic book wise, they don't typically roll that deep. Like, I mean, they're around each other and stuff, but I think there's an independent streak that Lady Sif has to a degree that can't be imputed upon by these oafs.
She's just they're like the muscle men, but Sif is like that, but she also has got a brain on her.
Lady Sif actually crossed over into back when they were trying to make this a thing, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one. I honestly wish they leaned more into Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in this movie, because it was such a great opportunity to like.
Yeah, that's one blind spot. I have no knowledge of that at all. I don't know. It seems good though.
And if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Colton, about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but when Lady Sif comes on that show, they just kind of imply like Coulson knows her because of Thor, right? Like they don't ever.
Yes, yeah, like they. Coulson's the one who's able to be like, oh shit, Sif. But the storyline is that Lady Sif's like lost her memory. She can't remember something, and they have to restore it or something. And so he's like Sif, and she's like, who the fuck's that? That sort of thing. So it's and obviously she pops back up. There's I've grown weary of Taika Waititi in recent months.
Oh, why is that?
He sucks.
Oh no!
Like as a person?
All the above.
Oh, what did he do? Did I miss something?
No, I mean, like he didn't do anything too controversial recently. It was a long time ago. He said some fucked up shit. That's just like, so it's like, but regardless, it's I think that creatively he's lost any motivation to do good. I think that he kind of knew that he was cashing a check with Thor and stuff, and he made goofy movies with his buddies, and that was kind of it. But and I hadn't really minded until I watched this again, and I watched the way that Thor kind of treats his friends in the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif and stuff, and then I think back to what Thor: Love and Thunder and Thor Ragnarok do with the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif and stuff, and they're
That's
dead.
true.
They're dead by Love and Thunder.
They were ride or die for Thor.
Mm-hmm.
They were
these were the homies, man. And that's what makes this movie so compelling compared to the first few MCU movies. Something that I hadn't realized until we've been doing this is that Thor has so easily the most interesting and compelling supporting characters of any MCU character so far. Iron Man's. I like Pepper Potts. I like Happy Hogan. I like Rhodey, but they are not Jane Foster and Heimdall and Loki and Odin and the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif.
Darcy is even Darcy. A long lasting character. Stellan Skarsgård, Eric Selvig. He's kind of turned crazy eventually, but I think it's hilarious just to see Stellan Skarsgård in that role. Yeah. But yeah, Thor, like the characters surrounding Thor are insane. Like, and we've had that conversation of how like Loki is like one of the most kind of underrated. I don't know if it was now. I mean, he's kind of very important with Loki season 1 and 2, but like before, we didn't really realize how important Loki was. Like the invasion in 2012, like all these things that Loki has done, like to propel everyone else forward. And that Loki's always lose to propel everyone else forward.
This was a genius choice by the MCU early on to make Loki the villain of Thor and then to bring him back as the villain of the Avengers. It's a brilliant choice. It's a fantastic choice. And, you know, like the closest thing that we can kind of look at now is if we don't even know where we're going, and that's like kind of what Kang is now, you know, like if they seem to be building him up a lot more than they ever did Loki, but regardless, like it's the closest thing, and I think that could be interesting. But I just, again, I love how simple it was. You know, it was just Loki resented his brother and his father for, you know, looking down on him as less than. And he wanted to be the guy. You know, there was a point in this movie where I put Tom Hiddleston down for my performance. I ultimately changed it, but it's the scene, like for young actors like Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston. Hiddleston fucking washes Hemsworth. Like,
yeah, he does in this one. Yeah, you could tell it's very early in Chris Hemsworth's career. Like this is he does fine. Like the scenes like when he's on Earth for the first time and acting very Asgardian, and you know, like in the diner, like I think like that's fine, and like that when he has to be like funny or whatever.
He's got incredible comedic chops. Chris Hemsworth is a funny dude. Yeah.
But whenever it comes to like the more emotional scenes or more anything like that, like I guess him yelling at Odin, you know, being like, "And you're just an old fool," like that conflict they had, I thought was actually done pretty well. And then the only other scene where I felt like any emotional resonance with Thor was like whenever it's him and Jane sitting by a fire, and he's like, "Hey, I got your notebook back, I got your journal back." And like, don't give up, you know, like you're right. Like you like, don't give up. Like, you're right. Let me tell you, the stories my father told me. And he goes into like the 9 realms and draws on her, you know, journal for her and stuff like that. And I don't know, I thought it was just a really cute scene. It's the one I actually chose just to plop down, as my favorite, because I don't know. I feel like I don't want to go with the end, but like the destroyer fight and then Thor powering back up, like is just so fucking sick. Like, I don't know, like, okay, sick. Then I'll go with the fireside chat they had there.
And that was my original scene that I put down prior to that. Simply because Jane and Thor have, I mean, like, there's an effortlessness to what Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow do and the Iron Man and Iron Man 2 stuff. And there's an implied history, therefore they don't have to play like they're meeting each other. You know, like it's not new, it's not a meet cute, it's nothing like that. So this, and same with Ed Norton and Liv Tyler and Incredible Hulk. There's a history. It's a reunion. It's not we're meeting each other for the first time. And I think that the way that they play this is incredible. I love their chemistry, and I think that they fire on all cylinders in this one. And
Oh yeah,
it's cool. It's cute. I enjoy it a great deal.
Natalie Portman. I mean, like, there's Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston. They do great, but like, there's an actual actor in this movie that does very well, like, every time she's on screen. And I mean, I think the best performance it goes to Natalie Portman. I was thinking Anthony Hopkins, which for some reason I thought was John Anthony Hopkins last night. I don't know why.
Hopkins, baby.
But he's just not in the movie enough, and then he's literally asleep for most of it. So I didn't really feel right giving him the nod over Natalie Portman, because I feel like she just actually deserves it.
That's Anthony Hopkins, though. Like,
that's that guy.
How much he kind of falls into that Odin role, and I'm like, Anthony Hopkins, really? Like, I feel like I imagine him as more of like the character he is in Westworld, as opposed to
in my theories, he's basically the same character. Like, he's creating all of this shit. He's writing all the stories. He is sending Thor and Loki on very specific paths. Like, the dude is too calculated. Like, he's asleep. The second Thor bangs on the Rainbow Bridge, wakes up. It is literally like he fucking just knew all this shit was gonna happen. He's like, all right, well, now I need to go save my boys, and then banish Loki.
They do say that he can hear and he knows what's going on around him while he's asleep.
So, like, he knew he wasn't gonna get assassinated by the Lawson, right? Or Laufey, thank you. Laufeyson. I just kind of merged it together. But yeah, Laufey, like, I mean, he knew he didn't wake up because he's like, well, I know Loki's about to, this is all part of his little plan here, or whatever. And then, like, he knows he's sitting on the throne, like, at the beginning, whenever Thor is about to be, his coronation, whatever. And right whenever, like, the coffin or whatever, whenever there's someone just in the armory room, he's like, Frost Giants. He just knows. Like, and I don't know, like, because with the Destroyer, like, Loki literally controls, like, the Destroyer. It's like him. Like, it is like at the end, like,
through its eyes, quote unquote.
Yeah, and so I'm assuming maybe Odin just has, the Destroyer's back there behind that wall, and maybe it's just like a literal security camera he can pop in and at any time, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it feels like Odin knows more of what's going on than just in his armory. It feels that he has a much grander grasp on everything. And the short version of my theory is that everything in the MCU is a loop, and it's shown by Loki, and like he had to go on this loop. But in order to start Loki on that loop even in the first place, Odin had to take him out of the ice. Like, Odin has to start Loki on this path. Kind of like Ouroboros and Victor Timely. Like, they both were the creators and the end at the same time, sort of thing. So kind of like that is the same thing that's going on with Loki and Odin in my mind. And that everything that Loki went on was just the lessons that he should learn to not be selfish, and losing is okay if it means saving everything, sort of thing. In which, I mean, that's the lesson he taught Thor in this one, is like he banished him to Earth, was like, all right, you're going to fall in love instantly with one of the hottest women on Earth, because it's the first human you'll ever see, and she's Natalie Portman, and then you'll come back, and then you'll have to realize you can't go back to her. Like, you have to sacrifice that for the greater good. And I don't know, I think they didn't plan this whatsoever. I'm not in any way saying that from the jump that they're planning all this shit, but I think like it's a cool way to retroactively, if they want to restart the MCU at large, I think they need to kind of go back to the beginning. Like, something needs to happen in which either everything's destroyed or like something reveals how the MCU works. Like, I don't know what that would be, but this is the only thing that can connect in my mind.
Here's my thing. I don't think they're creative enough to do that.
Really? You don't think? I mean, in She-Hulk, they had the Kevin robot, so I mean, they literally could go that route.
I'm like, they were at one point when it was smaller. It's just gotten so fucking big that I think in order for it to wipe out, it's just there will be like a last. I think they'll know when that is. I don't think they'll be like, oh, well, it's over. We're just going to go ahead and reboot. I think there will be like a fitting. Like, I don't think they will make it so that the MCU like kind of starts over. I think it'll be like we send off our universe on a high note, which I will again. I've liked a lot of stuff post Endgame. It just doesn't seem worth it. Endgame was that, and I think that we get something like that again, and then Marvel's not going to stop making movies. They'll reboot it, and they'll do something again. But
this is. I love the stage that we're in because like nothing's set in stone. Like I love that the Infinity Stones weren't even like hardcore created until Guardians of the Galaxy, like the backstory of them. And James Gunn was just like, all right, fuck it, I'll do it because I'm James Gunn. But like anything could just happen right now, and the world is so open. But like the world we're in now is like there's so many restraints. There are so many things that have to like that you have to make sure make sense. That it's like
makes sense.
It's tough. But in the fourth movie of the MCU, they're like, fuck it, 9 realms, Asgard. Oh, look at his armor. He has some weird relics. The coffin, whatever the hell that is. Like the ice
casket. It's called
casket. Thank you. Yeah, casket. But like, it's just kind of like their space stone or like their power stone sort of thing. I don't know. It's just kind of it unleashes cold and can power their shit.
It's an interesting little idea. One thing that I do appreciate about this movie is that they were willing, when it comes to the previous MCU movies we've seen so far, we've got RDJ who was in the midst of resurging. He was on his way. He did Zodiac the year before, and it was like, oh, maybe RDJ's back, and then he does this, but regardless, well established. Gwyneth Paltrow, well established. Ed Norton, well established. And the supporting characters are well established. Jon Favreau has been busy. He's done a lot in that time. Terrence Howard was very famous and still is to a degree, and but I appreciate that we give the lead to relative unknowns. Chris Hemsworth had been in Star Trek 2 years before, in a small role, but
really? I didn't know that.
Yes, he was George Kirk. So he's the son. I can't remember how he's related to Captain Kirk, played by Chris Pine.
Okay,
but
I'm not big into the Star Trek universe, but.
I'm not either. I just I was familiar with Chris Hemsworth's filmography, but and then Tom Hiddleston. This is his first big swing, but we've got Anthony Hopkins, who is
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yes, at this point, most famous for playing Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs, and Hannibal. We got Idris Elba, who'd been not a movie star yet. He's still a working actor at this point. But, he was in The Wire and was like the main villain of The Wire for years, and which was a prestige HBO drama that everyone watched at one point. So you had that. And then you have Natalie Portman, who 3 months before this movie comes out had won an Oscar for the best actress in a leading role. So you got a fantastic supporting cast. And it reminds me, I always connect it back to this for that is like Star Wars, where you got unknowns. You got Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, but you're anchoring it with Alec Guinness and Peter Cushing and these sorts of people, it grants it a sense of legitimacy. Because we've been saying, it was a risk, it was a big swing, and I think it pays off overall. I think it's a much more fun movie than it is a good movie, and I think that's an important distinction. I sit in the place where so far, this is my personal favorite MCU movie. Not the best, but my personal favorite. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm back and forth between this and Iron Man, just because I do have that history with Iron Man. But man, if I'm just popping a movie on, this one's kind of a lot easier to rewatch than Iron Man. It's just visually cooler. The soundtrack is way better. The soundtrack is fucking incredible. Yeah, I've been listening to it the whole time in the background. It's just it's goated. Almost every Thor movie has a pretty nice soundtrack to it. It's a chance for Marvel to go super fantasy if they want to. Because with Iron Man, it's on Earth, like Hulk on Earth. It's still crazy that they're a thing, but Thor is literally a god. Like, oh, these are stories that we do tell kids, or like these are very well known stories, like in just Norse mythology. So it's like I don't know. I love to think that all mythology at some point was true, but there are fucking 9 realms. They just actually popped back to Asgard. But they came here for a little bit, and I don't know. I think someone was saying that it was Natalie Portman and Stellan Skarsgård. They were all arguing about like how science fiction's only science fiction until it's until it is science fact, whatever. And Stellan Skarsgård's like, oh, these are stories I told my fucking kids. We need hardcore proof. We need evidence or whatever. And then the Warriors 3 and Sif pop up right at their front door, and they're like, shit. I don't know if that is the exact moment. Actually, I might
it's
be
right around then
together, but I love the.
It's not too far after that. But Tav, what would you say was your favorite scene in this movie?
In terms of scene, I don't know. Like, there's not really one scene that I feel like really helps encapsulate any, because I like to think of like what scene is not like prophetic, but like kind of speaking to the central themes of the movie. And that tends to be like my favorite expression, but I don't know that I have a specific one. If I had to choose one, I guess, I think Loki's introduction as like King, felt really sinister, and it was kind of unnerving how sinister it felt when taken in context of how he ends up being portrayed as kind of not a joke villain, but like I think the Avengers kind of do Loki dirty with where they start him and where they take him in terms of seriousness. Like you're just kind of like, he's just the lackey by the end of it. But I'm like, no, like when he was introduced, like Loki was like threatening, and I mean he still should be threatening because he's very powerful.
Yeah, it's like he uses the "I'm a god," like I am a god of mischief, and it's kind of like a running joke that he calls himself a god, but like to everyone that we know in the MCU, like he's legitimately a god, like he's got the stuff to back it up. And that was I think my shot that I'm going with. It's between Loki. I'm like on the throne. They made him look like a frost giant. Like they made him look huge up there. And like the angle of like the Warriors 3 and Sif kind of looking up to him. They're all kneeling with like doing I don't know their fist across their chest, and when he starts to walk down the steps, there's like this really cool blue kind of lens flare. I don't know or kind of what it is, but he's just like walking through it, and it just I thought that whole like sequence was just shot super well.
No, yeah, that's definitely one of the best visuals. A lot of the stuff on Asgard is really, really pleasing visually.
Yeah.
Like for me, shot wise, it was hard. The movie kicks off with my favorite shot, like when they introduce Thor and he's standing above his coronation ceremony and he lifts his hammer, and you see like it kind of reintroduce, like you're introduced to this larger side of the universe. Like we got all these people in funky, funny armor and the golden aesthetic and everything. Like it was nice. I really enjoyed it, and I mean, like composition wise, it was just one of the more interesting shots in the movie. I think that. The
opening of Asgard was just incredible. Like you have an Anthony Hopkins narration going on in the background, which I always fucking love. He's talking about Asgard's history, and then like after the war's all over, he's like, and then we return to the realm eternal, Asgard, and then like you think it's Asgard, but you're actually beneath Asgard, and then it like flips, it like the camera like pans up, and you see it's like a reflection of like the bottom of Asgard, and then like you slowly pan up to see the rest of it, and like I don't know, I thought everything in Asgard was awesome, and then like those huge like statues like at the top of Asgard, like I remember like massive, like a hallway of just like warriors or something, I don't know, like it looked I just thought they did incredible with Asgard, and picking anything on Earth was kind of tough. To pick something on Earth, but
I ultimately, for my scene, went with something on Earth because I just loved the moment whenever it's a little, I don't know, forced at the time, but it makes sense. I enjoyed it where, he's approaching the destroyer and he's like, Loki, whatever it is that I did to you that made you do this, I'm sorry. And he gets smacked to death.
Bitch slapped too. Just sent 500 yards backwards. Yeah. I mean, I forgot that's how he was injured enough to need his hammer back.
He could have killed.
Yeah, I mean, he's mortal at that point,
Yeah, like if you get smacked like that, you're gonna die. That's some trauma to the brain for sure. But I loved that there's the sense of whenever the hammer starts buzzing and everyone's like, it's going crazy, and then it shoots up into the air. Stellan Skarsgård runs and grabs Natalie Portman and pulls her away. And then he like stands up and catches it, and he's all fucking got it out. And Natalie Portman goes, "Oh my god!" They realize he has been, like he's not crazy. Like he might have been right about a lot of stuff. Yeah. But more so than that, like the sense that we get coming into this movie, just like what Tavares was saying, I feel like this kind of captures what the thematic tie of the movie is. Like he was unworthy until he was worthy again.
This is true. This is true. And that felt like a really meaningful message for his first movie, considering how his story ends up, because it's like that's not even the first time or the last time that he'll be quote unquote unworthy of the title of Thor. It just kind of speaks to the resilience that he has and the kind of person that, because when Thor, like, if I was thinking about like how I perceived Thor through like the end of the Infinity Saga, and honestly it was just like as one of those motherfuckers who will do what needs to be done regardless of if he's got a weapon or not, and that doesn't come without this kind of storytelling, I think, from his origin.
Yeah, like him just I don't know if he has a hammer, but I remember him just like jumping and just lightning being like around him and like no weapon at all, and he's just like charging into a huge crowd or something like that. And it's just like it's sick that he doesn't really need anything. And like even with the like when he starts fighting the ice giants, though, I know we said it kind of looked like 2011, but like that first like doosh, like and just like sending like just the uppercut with the hammer and like the dude just flies backwards. I was like, okay, I don't know this. When he was just taking them all out, I'm like, this dude's just fucking like he's different. Like the Warriors 3 and Sif are like, we gotta fucking go. Like holy shit! And like the big dog is like the Rancor is coming out, and then Thor's just still like, I'm not worried at all. I got this. I'm gonna make my friends seem that they're gonna die, but I got him at the last second. Well,
there's a lot of, again, like imagery wise, this is why like I appreciated Kenneth Branagh being behind the camera, because he has a real knack for this sort of, like I said, Shakespearean fantasy. And whenever Odin arrives at Jotunheim and the Bifrost is hammering down and he's on his horse and he's lifting his, I don't even know what his fucking scepter is.
Yeah, what is that thing? Odin's scepter. That sounds right. Because
Loki has a scepter.
Spear, maybe? Gungnir. 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 I guess that might be the actual Norse. I don't know if that's MCU.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's Gungnir. Gungnir, I guess. Yeah, made of Uru.
Yeah, that's the same stuff that Mjolnir and Stormbreaker are made of. But no, like a lot of the Bifrost imagery was really cool. I loved when the Warriors 3, Lady Sif and Thor and Loki were going to Jotunheim, and it was like the first time we are in the Bifrost. I loved
the Bifrost imagery is like the most symbolic of Thor. I feel like when I think Thor, I think that fucking sick ass, and like that's told in how they literally devote a whole movie to that aesthetic in Ragnarok. I feel like
right, exactly. They do end up making sure that we explore that fully, and I love that he's gained the ability now where he wields Stormbreaker, which has the ability to just. He doesn't need Heimdall
what I'm saying, dude. Like Asgard, it seems futuristic, but it is really a crude recreation of all of the magical abilities that like it seems that they had, like, Loki can just time slip and do wherever he wants. Thor can harness the power of the Bifrost, I guess, with Stormbreaker. You know, he can't do it on his own.
Oh yeah,
but,
he needs Stormbreaker.
But like it's like the Bifrost we see, it seems like a very old technology. Like the spin, it has to spin and then point to wherever and shoots him off. You know, I don't know. I love Heimdall in here though, just being like
his introductory shot, that like sort of Dutch angled upward angle of him, the beautiful fucking starry sky in the background.
Oh yeah,
gorgeous.
And
this. I'll say for this movie, what I really love is it has a fantastic first act, and of the MCU movies we watched, I'd argue the best third act so far. And the middle's important character work, but that is definitely the most slow going part of the movie, like when he is just stranded on Earth and all that stuff is kind of happening.
Yeah. This is true. I mean, we do have Tony stuck in a cave, and you know, I guess it's not as drawn out, and it's kind of that's more near the beginning. But I think it's very crucial, like that he goes on this slow, and drawn out sort of thing because he's used to Asgard. He's used to being Thor. He's it's like it's everything is so different for him. So it as far as a movie goes, it might not be the most entertaining, but I think it was the right decision to like make his story stronger, because I think that third act doesn't feel as good if you don't get to sit with him powerless for such a long time.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think that him being powerless is necessarily what makes the middle of this movie kind of weak. I think that it feels like it's just kind of middling and muddling around in the exact same ideas for about 45 minutes in the middle of the movie. Like we're really dwelling on the same shit over and over and over. Like I don't know. Like I don't get me wrong, I enjoy it a great deal. I'm more talking about the quality at this point. Like it's just it's a weak part of the movie, I think, and like weaker than the first and third act. Like it's not bad per se. I don't want to put it like that. It's just that when you have such a exciting, fresh, new first act and something that pays off from the first two acts in a really compelling way there, I think that something this more so than anything, that middle act has a tough time. That's where the tone balancing becomes really difficult, because you are doing this slow, powerless thing on Earth, but then we're cutting to Asgard and Loki's taking over, and there's this really exciting angle going on there, and it's just like this really it's a tough thing to balance, and I think they do about as good a job as they could have. Well, that's probably not true, but they do a solid job. Like it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's good. It's solid. And sometimes that's all you need.
I think it's valid enough to say that Thor is the character for the movie. I think I think for an origin movie, it should go that way. I think that's kind of what you would hope
even
for.
More interesting for me, I also went with Thor for my favorite character of the movie. He earned it. I did not have him as my favorite character for
the movie. I had Heimdall in there for a little. I had Odin. I had Loki. I was just kind of going back and forth. Even I guess Jane's pretty cool too. Like, man, you're kind of right. Thor just has the sickest supporting cast around him.
Like on sight. Like as soon as you meet them, you're like, these are some dope ass motherfuckers. And it is important for Thor's story that he is at the beginning obviously not your favorite character. He's not supposed to be at the beginning of the movie. Like he is. Yeah.
I want to fight them. I want to teach them a lesson. I'm the king. Yeah, it's like
we'll finish them together. That delivery is horrendous. I love Chris Hemsworth, but it's bad. No, and I also can't stand the blonde eyebrows. Don't know what they were thinking there.
Yeah. Oh. Now that you point that out.
Oh, I can't not watch it without being like,
is Chris Hemsworth not a blonde?
I don't think his eyebrows.
His eyebrows are not blonde.
Goodness.
Oh wow, yeah, that's like they might have dyed his beard as well.
No, yeah, like his entire facial hair is blonde, where it's not normally blonde.
Oh yeah, his beard and like his whole hair is actually just way darker.
Yeah, he's a dark-headed man.
Yeah. But man, yeah, wow. I mean,
you see that later on in like Ragnarok and stuff like that? Like, he has a dirtier blonde thing going on than this pure. Yeah. And like this is more, in terms of iconography, very much more accurate to the idea of Thor.
True. Yeah, I was reading that they came down between the Hemsworth brothers for Thor. Like that was the two people they were between, which is interesting. I was trying to think of like someone else who could have been Thor. Oh, there's more than two? Oh shit.
Yeah, there's a few of them. One of them's in Westworld actually. One of them is Ashley in Westworld. One of the guards for the park. There's Liam, Chris.
It is Liam, yeah. It was Liam. Wow, I didn't know there was.
That's funny because the other one, the one who was in Westworld, is the actor Thor in Ragnarok and
Whoa. That's fucking weird. That is weird, whack. But Liam, I guess they do look kind of similar. I don't know. It seems that he doesn't have the build that Chris Hemsworth does. Like he just looks like fucking Thor. Like
you could make the argument that maybe if Liam had booked this role, he would have that build. You know,
True.
That's kind of it's kind of something the MCU makes sure they get their guys to do is steroids.
Did he do a bunch of them? Did he do a bunch of them?
All of them do, bro. Like Chris Evans doesn't just look like that, you know.
Didn't they do some camera magic to get them looking like they're superheroes?
Oh, certainly, yeah. There's definitely a balance there, you know. But you know, when we get to, I remember when I saw Age of Ultron in theaters, and there's that like scene of like Chris Evans chopping wood, and I was like, I just felt terrible about myself. I was like, my God, this is.
Yeah. I mean, whenever Thor's here and he's putting on Jane's ex's clothes, and he just walks out of the closet with
the female gaze, which I appreciated. You know,
he's just holding the shirt. He puts pants on in the closet, but he's holding the shirt in the closet. He chooses to walk out of the room and be like, I have the shirt in my hand, but you know, I'll let you look more a little bit. You know, and I don't know. I love like Jane just. I mean, yeah, because you're gonna be. I
mean, this is a beautiful man. There's no question about it.
And even the convos that like Eric Stellan Skarsgård has with him, like, hey, I care for her, like, and I know the way she looks at you, like, don't fucking hurt her. Like I love that, and I think in that scene, that is where my line comes from. Now they're just sitting in a bar drinking, just two dudes chatting it up, and Skarsgård says, anyone who wants to find their way in this world has to start by admitting he doesn't know where the hell he is.
There you go.
And I mean, like, it works for Thor perfectly in this movie, and it just, I think it's just kind of like a bar, anyways, just in general. It's, I don't know, I love Stellan Skarsgård as well. I had to get him in here somewhere, no matter what. He's just, I love what he does, but yeah, I like the emotional resonance definitely came from Natalie Portman and Stellan Skarsgård, and I'd say like Anthony Hopkins a little bit. Frigga, some, you know, I wish Frigga was in here a little more. Like she's just like by Odin's, you know, bedside and like talks to Loki a little bit.
And they try to
it's like
later on, and it was kind of like, oh, who is she again? Like you have to remind yourself.
Yeah. The current queen of Asgard. You know, just kind of hanging out, whatever.
Kind of build on with Thor: The Dark World that, you know, it's important for Thor: The Dark World, and maybe important that you leave it out for this movie for us to be thematically more understanding of Loki. Is that Frigga and Loki have a good relationship? They are particularly like where Odin favored Thor. Frigga recognized that and showed Loki a lot of love. You know, like that's an important part of Loki's upbringing. And even so, I think that I don't think they do quite enough with that. I do think there's still something that he could harbor that resentment for his father and for his brother, and you know, but like kind of protect his mom almost, like like you were the only one that was good to me, sort of thing. Like
yeah. I'm remembering now just what he does to her. Yeah, it's I don't know. Loki's just
inadvertently. He doesn't mean for it to happen.
Yeah. But like he didn't mean, he only allowed a couple frost giants into the armor. He didn't mean to start a war, or anything like that. But I guess I don't know. Dark World is kind of distant from me, so a lot of the details I just kind of like. I'm remembering mostly the TVA rewind of Loki's life instead of actually what happens in the Dark World.
Right.
But
I think I remember Dark World being pretty ass, if I recall.
That's the general consensus.
That is the general consensus. I think we're gonna run into something that because I mean, this is I'm excited to dig more into the MCU as we've been talking about. We're about to get into a place where there's a more steady flow of, at the very least, enjoyable. But we've also talked about it as being better.
Mm-hmm. We get First Class is next up, which I mean that's not MCU, but next up is Cap's origin. Like the first Avenger is
an actually good movie. That might be, besides Iron Man, the only other truly good movie from Phase 1.
And then obviously the Avengers. Phase 1 is there's no terrible movie, out of Phase 1. I guess Hulk maybe would be the worst. I don't know. I guess Iron Man 2.
Iron Man 2
you feel?
Yeah, definitely.
You guys feel critically, yeah, but I have
Incredible Hulk.
What's that?
That's I can't. I still can't. There's no way I can put Iron Man 2 below Incredible Hulk. I
can't put Iron Man 2 below Incredible
Hulk.
Hulk.
It's not. I could see the downfalls of Iron Man 2, but I still can't put it below.
Incredible Hulk was horrible.
That was
I like it more. I do.
I guess I did tweak my.
I'm gonna press you to defend yourself on this every time.
I guess I don't know. I have them literally back to back in my ranking, my own personal one, and I tweaked it kind of a bit. Iron Man 2 is at 13, Incredible Hulk's at 14, so it's I see them kind of on the same level, if anything.
I've got Iron where this ends up falling. This in terms of enjoyment, this falls on my ranking rather high.
It's high on mine. Yeah, it's high.
I like this one. I like, in terms of just a casual viewing, I could throw this on. I was tempted to throw it on immediately after I fucking finished it last night. Just go ahead and run it back, put it on in the background, do whatever I needed to,
It's an incredibly rewatchable
I've not felt that in a while for one of these, but it's
where did it land? Where did it land for you?
As we know, last week, this is our 41st movie. Or a couple weeks ago when we did Iron Man 2, that got bumped down to 28 because this rose above it.
28. So it was at 27.
It was 27, and then I added Thor.
Okay.
So
yes. Wow. Okay.
Incredible Hulk is at 12, and Iron Man's at 11. So I put Incredible Hulk more on a similar footing to Iron Man than I do Iron Man 2.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
that movie was surprising for me. I enjoyed that one a lot more than I thought I did. Also, that's the MCU movie I've watched far and away the least. That was basically a first watch, and I also, historically, just in terms of a nostalgic attachment, I even have a greater attachment to Hulk than I do Iron Man. So there's that as well. But Thor finds its place in the top 10 above Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Above V for Vendetta, and just above the first X-Men at 7.
Okay. Wow. That 7 is where Thor lands for me. It was comfortably in my top 10. Below Iron Man. Iron Man is 5 for me. I bumped it up to 5. I think it was at 6 or I don't know what before. But Thor, the 2 above it, Iron Man and Spider-Man 2. I have Spider-Man 2 just barely above Thor. My nostalgia for Spidey and Doc Ock, I don't know. That's just a movie I could throw on no matter when. It might not be as good of a movie, but I still put Spider-Man 2 above it. I put Thor above Batman Begins, and V for Vendetta and Watchmen, and I loved the Watchmen. So Thor, I don't know. I had a really good time with this one, and this is the rewatchability was a big factor.
I love the deeper we get into this, how far and farther apart our rankings get. It's super satisfying.
Yeah, because you said Iron Man 2 was like 27, 28. My 27 and 28 is Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and Batman and Robin. That's like
Batman and Robin's 27. Batman and Robin's 27, so we're right there.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But
Superman 4 Quest for Peace,
the X-Men,
33.
I don't know. I think First Class was the one I remember liking the most, actually, out of the X-Men movies. When I watched
and you
them
didn't
first.
get to these until like a couple years ago.
Yeah,
so
I don't have that history. The X-Men, like X2 and X-Men, fall just right outside my top 10. It's 11 and 12. But
yeah, X2 is in my top 5. So
okay. Okay.
Yeah, I have Thor just below Batman Begins at 6.
Yeah, I put it above. I don't know. I like Batman. It's definitely a better made movie. I don't think there's any question about that. Batman Begins versus Thor. But as far as just like, if I'm going to put a movie on, I'm going to watch Thor before Batman Begins. Because if I'm putting on a Batman movie from that trilogy, it's The Dark Knight.
Right.
So
Dark Knight's 1 right now as well. So.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to get there.
The 2-hour runtime on Thor 2 just makes it so easy to just throw on anytime.
Yeah, it was an hour and 40 minutes. It was so fucking simple and easy and nice. It was over before I even knew it. You know, I think the middle it's a little stretchy. It lasts a little long, but.
Never once where you're like, this is just like, end it now, please.
Yeah, like clearly I've got it top 10 out of 41 here. You know, like it's if the middle act was as bad as at some points I'm saying it is, it would not be this high.
Yeah, that's. I don't know. I was pleasantly surprised. I knew I was gonna like it. I knew it was gonna be pretty high up already, but I think it surprised me more than anything. I think it probably climbed higher than I thought it would. Because I didn't think I'd put it above Batman Begins, honestly, for me. And like, I love V for Vendetta. That's another Natalie Portman one that I don't know. V for Vendetta is just a really unique. It's unlike any other comic book movie that there is, and I still put Thor above it. So I mean, he's always been that guy, you know. I mean, that's every dude, bro, that loves the MCU. He's the most powerful. Captain Marvel came in there and just shook the dynamic up, and oh my god, I love the arguments seeing people go back and forth on the power rankings of the of the people in the MCU.
If I was throwing Captain Marvel on this list right now, I'd be pretty high up there. Just saying.
Yeah.
On this one. As we have it right now, 41. I love that movie. I'm not going to spoil it, but
it's not a bad movie. I mean, that's the thing. It's not a bad movie. The only people that hate it are extremely just misogynistic people.
Typically, then there's certainly criticisms to have. It's not a fantastic movie by any means.
I think it's kind of better made than this. It's better made than this.
Yeah,
so,
where I'm sitting, I mean, I'm looking top 5. I'm looking top 3. I'm looking top 2.
I could see top 5 on this one, definitely. This one is just like the nostalgia value alone just is enough.
Oh, dude,
so much of that MCU magic was the reason why this movie did so well.
Oh yeah,
was it received well, like by the public whenever it came out? Do you have any idea?
About as good as any other MCU movie, you know, like it's not even Incredible Hulk was that poorly received, you know, like it's
I mean, it made $450 million globally. And then let's see what like Iron Man 2 would have made before. $620 million. So I guess like you had the name recognition of Iron Man, like you'd probably expect to have a little bit of a dip, but okay, that's still did well, it seems.
Oh, to be sure. Yeah, now I'm interested. I want to see. Yeah, Iron Man made 585 worldwide.
Yeah, the Dark World made just as much as Iron Man 2. So it got people to come back. Like this, I think that
I think that's ultimately the biggest key factor in telling how it was received. You know, like the Incredible Hulk. Granted, only made $260 million, so maybe it wasn't as widely acclaimed as these other ones. But regardless, it's like I said, this is just kind of another one here. It's just just another MCU movie, and in its early days, it was exciting, it was new. I'm sure that drew people to the box office, and I mean, this was the first time I'd watched it in a couple years, and I was happy. I liked it as much as I remember. You know, it was about as good as I expected it to be as well. But I did like. I was worried that because of that, I would have the same thing as Iron Man 2. I was worried that I was like, because I remembered Iron Man 2 as me being like, oh, I like it a lot. And I still enjoy the movie, but I just, it's all right. I was afraid I'd come out of the other side like this. But I did. I had a good time here. I had a great time here. So
I'm definitely enticed to watch the next ones pretty soon after.
Right. Like I was tempted to fucking throw on Dark World after I finished this too. Like I know.
I mean, we got some time, I think, before the Dark World. It's okay. Number 52. I was
gonna say 3 months, 2 months.
Yeah, I could use it. I could definitely go for it. We got enough time. But Thor is just such a cool. I mean, it's so open ended, and like it's the cool like.
Oh shit!
I love the trope of like someone coming to Earth that isn't from Earth, and I don't just like having to experience Earth for the first time.
Yeah, and I loved the flip side when Natalie Portman and all them realized that the world's larger than they knew. Like that's it happens in like Game of Thrones whenever Tyrion sees a dragon for the first time and shit like that. Like,
yes.
The reverence with like, oh my god, the world as I knew it before is not the same anymore, and I love that sort of stuff.
One thing that kind of got me a little bit was like they see the Destroyer, a metal giant that shoots laser beams out of its eyes. And, like, I guess they could have thought that was, like, S.H.I.E.L.D. or maybe a Tony Stark thing, you know? But, like, at that sight, I would be like, holy like, they see the Warriors 3 and Sif, and then they see the Destroyer. I mean, I'm already like, okay.
I loved Agent Coulson being like, God damn it, Tony. He never tells me what he's up to when the Destroyer shows up.
Yeah. Oh, he did say that? He thought it was Tony? Oh, that's actually hilarious. Yeah. I missed that. Oh, damn, that's awesome. Wow, so they just, okay, maybe that was the thought, that it was just, fuck, Tony's going crazy right now, holy shit.
Still got some time for that.
But, like, the stab through the neck, and then it turns around on
Dude, gnarly.
Oh, my God, that was awesome.
No, I think that there's this unfair, you know, people look back on this movie, and I think Loki's obviously the clear villain, but people often go like Luffy and the Destroyer and all that, and it's like they were a means to an end, you know. Like
Destroyer is literally like an extension of Odin or Loki. It's not like its own. I don't know. Is it sentient? You know, does it have its own? It feels like not. It feels like it's just kind of like a
sentry of some sort.
Well,
it's like real steel
bot through the sentry, wasn't he? Because that's how. That's how.
And Thor knew that as well. Like Thor was like, "Hey, Loki, what's up? Like, I know you hear me right now. Don't kill these people. Kill me."
It's funny because it like never actually speaks, but I swear whenever Thor like catches his hammer or like he like feels that Thor's about to get up, he like turns and goes, "What?" And you can kind of hear Tom Hiddleston's voice behind it.
Really?
Really?
I think so. I might have been imagining that, but I the thing that made me think that was the case is that I could vaguely make out Tom Hiddleston with like a voice filter. But yeah, no, I like I said, I'm sitting fine with this movie. It's a fun one. It's a good time. You know, it's nothing groundbreaking, but for the MCU, it kind of was. You know, for the MCU, it kind of was.
Yeah, definitely.
I could have done it for you, for all of us.
Yeah,
it's a little bit different after watching and
the end is fucking good. The visually there's this moment whenever Loki and Thor are on opposite ends of like the Bifrost dome thing, and Thor's like talking to him, and it's a Dutch angle, but it's like zooming in on him, and then it looks at Loki and it zooms in on him, and they keep talking, and it keeps zooming further and further, and it's visually extremely kinetic and super fucking cool, and stuff like that is super fun. And I mean, visually, the ending is astonishingly well done. Like I thought that was going to age a lot more poorly than it did. And frankly, I would be so fucking happy if some of the stuff we saw now looked like that.
Oh man, it was awesome. That like, because in my head I'm thinking like the ending is whenever he powers back up and he gets his hammer and kills the destroyer. But like he goes back to Asgard like and is like, "Yo, where's my brother? Like I got to take care of this right now." And like, duh, it doesn't end on Earth. And yeah, that I don't know, him just. Did he know he was gonna go in a little wormhole, or like was this Loki just kind of being like? Because he does pop up back on Earth in the post-credit scene. Is that like where that portal just straight up took him, like right away?
Sure we see him. Do you remember how he enters the Avengers?
How he enters,
like how his entrance, like how he shows up.
Oh, is it like in a like walk through the port, like in his ship?
Yeah,
but like he's already on Earth right now, though, in the post-credit scene, right?
Well, the post-credit scene, I think, takes place. Eric Selvig's already been taken over. At the beginning of the Avengers, we watch him get taken over. This takes place during the post-credit scene. Takes place during the events.
Okay.
Frankly, it's actually something they kind of retconned. This was the general spirit of where the Avengers was going to go. But this no longer is really what happens.
I see.
Because it's actually the studying on the Tesseract that opens the portal that Loki comes in through.
Oh,
and that's when he starts.
That's right.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
So that's where like it's a little. Yeah, it's a little murky, but like the spirit of it anyway. Like they were like, this is something that we want to do. This is the idea of where we're going. This is something that like, so even if it's a small retcon like that, it still flows fine. It's not like he's already there, but I like to think that he falls, he finds himself in a wormhole. Cause that's the thing about this too, is that like, he just keeps falling, right? Like there's no fucking ground. He just keeps fucking going.
You see like a kind of like a wormhole type thing, like a black hole that he kind of falls into, and it closes right after he falls into it. I didn't like it's kind of like it's like space is like collapsing around him, sort of thing. It's just
it's interesting to think about because I mean when he shows up in the Avengers, and obviously there's a continuity thing, they weren't totally concerned with the idea that you had just watched Thor. Like it's a reintroduction of Loki. If you had not seen Thor, it didn't matter. And he's sweaty and crazed and fucking psychotic, which makes it look like he's been falling for fucking years. Like it's just been what he's doing,
he fell all the way to Earth.
I've been falling for 30 minutes.
That's fair. Yeah. But like he does mention that there's like to Heimdall, he's like there are pathways and shit that you don't even know about, that I can access. And he can block himself from Heimdall somehow.
Right.
That's just kind of out there, which I think is kind of nuts. Like Heimdall, I don't know. He sees like in the whenever he went to like Jotunheim, met with Laufey, he's like, hey, I saw you, you went to Jotunheim, but I couldn't see what you were doing. Like, what the fuck, dude? And Loki's just like, yeah, no, I have that shit on me. Like, I can travel anywhere I want. You don't even know about it. And I don't know. I think that's pretty, like, just a detail they drop in there. I don't know if it's willy-nilly or if it's to explain why he can just go wherever the fuck he wants to and see.
Yeah, I think it's more just it's more of an explain away thing, and he's the god of mischief, and he's powerful, and more powerful than he lets on too. Like he plays innocent, which is a lot of the thing he does throughout the beginning of the movie, which I hadn't really recalled, but I loved whenever Odin was like banishing Thor, and like they cut to Loki, and he's like standing in the corner with his eyebrows like oh no, my puppy, like
that.
But it's like exactly what he wants. Yeah. So like, I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. Or do you guys think we're ready for a rating? Are we about there?
I think so. Yeah, I was looking at what range it would fall in. I mean, if I'm ranking it up at 7, right below Spider-Man 2, above Batman Begins. I mean that's 9 range there for enjoyment. In between 9.25 and 8.75 for me. If I'm going off my own list, but. And I think I'm actually kind of there. Like in the like Iron Man was a 9. We gave the first Iron Man a 9. X2 was 8.75. Spider-Man 2 8.75. So
yeah, I've gotten to a point now where I'm trying to recontextualize our rating system to kind of abide by a larger continuity with our critically acclaimed coverage. And at this point, I'm still very, very high on it. Like, it's not like, I don't think I can allow it to breach the 9 barrier personally. And there are very few movies that I would think would. But 8.75 doesn't sound terrible to me. Tavares, how are you feeling about this one?
I could see 8.75 to 9. That area feels comfortable in terms of enjoyment. It's almost spot on.
Yeah. Iron Man was a 9. I mean, I have Iron Man at 5 and Thor at 7. So like I'm fine with putting it at an 8.75. Like I don't really even think it deserves a 9.
Yeah, no, like that's my thing is that Iron Man I've got at 11. I've got X2 at 5. So that's the other thing for me. So like I'm cool with an 8.75. I think it's a nice place to split the difference there.
Okay. All right, there we are. Now genre. I mean, hey, this is a big swing for them. This is a different whole type of genre that they're kind of going with here. You get a little fantasy in there. I think the Asgard stuff is done very, very well. The action that we do see, I think, is actually pretty cool.
I love the sci-fi fantasy thing this movie's got going on. I think genre-wise, it's we talked about at the beginning of this sort of project what a 10 in the genre means, and I don't think this is quite that. But one of the criteria was that this movie knew exactly what it was, and it did that as well as it possibly could have.
Yep.
And I don't think that's the case. But I do think this movie knew exactly what it was, and it acted on it in that regard. So that lends itself to at least an 8, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean 8 would be Blade, X2, Batman
89. Blade is a fantastic comparison. Like in terms of the genre, like knowing what it is, doing it maybe not to the highest possible standard, but still doing a solid job, I
like that. Iron Man was also an 8. I feel like that is kind of just they did a good job. They knew what they were doing, but they could have elevated it a little bit higher.
It just could have been a better movie. Yeah.
So I like an 8. I think that sounds cool to me.
Adaptation wise, this has a pretty it takes its liberties, to be sure, but it's not a terrible adaptation. In fact, characterization wise, as far as comic Thor is concerned, this really isn't bad. It's not bad for Loki. It's very, very honorable to like Ultimate Thor, like the Ultimate Universe, as a lot of the early MCU is. I find myself around the same point as Iron Man. Iron Man 2, 7.75, 8.
I like that. Yeah, I think
like that too.
It's nothing. I don't know. I guess I'm not too deep into Thor comics and truly know.
I will say, when it came to Iron Man, which got an 8, there's no one in that movie I could really point to and go, well, he's not particularly well adapted. I could do that with Iron Man 2, and I could do that with this one, but it's for a character like Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and for
he's
3-minute
hardly
cameo. Yeah.
So where this movie could have been an 8, I say we bump it down. I say we bump it down to a 7.75. I think that's fine.
Okay. I agree with that.
Cool. And then critically now, here we go. The most intriguing rating, in my opinion. This critically, what would it be close to? Let's see. Iron Man, I think Iron Man is probably better made the first movie. One. Yeah, that's 7.75. Spider-Man 3 is a 7.
I'm like, we've got Batman Returns at a 7. Batman Returns is a better movie than this. I don't think there's, The Incredible Hulk we had at a 6.25. So I think that 6.5, 6.75 range is more where we end up falling critically.
Yeah,
because it is above. I'd say it's above par. You know, it's
above par, especially
like
for its contemporaries.
It's above middle of the road, but it's not by like a ton. It's just solid. So I think a 6.5 or a 6.75, I could get behind either of those.
I like that gap in between, like the Donner cut in Batman Forever and Spider-Man 3. I like Spider-Man 3. It's kind of goofy, but I still think it is.
It's a good fucking movie. I think, like, in terms of the way that it's done, it's well done.
I'll rewatch that any day.
So yeah, I think like a 6.75 is more where I'm thinking.
Right. I'm cool with that.
Okay.
Which would equal it out 0.75 to a 7.75 overall, which places it below Batman Forever, below Spider-Man 3, but above Batman 89, and above Batman Returns, above the X-Men, above the Hulk, Incredible Hulk.
Love that. All right.
So I think, 7.75. That's it. I mean, I just kind of like a gut, just to rate the movie. I'd say I would have thought around closer to a 7, or like a 7.25.
Yeah.
Around, but that I think it's the rewatchability. I think
whenever
is
it works
big
out
for
that way, like we're like, it would probably fall around a 7, and that's where we ultimately have it. Whenever it doesn't work out that way, I'm like, man, did we do this right? That's kind of when I start to question that. I'm like, But I'm satisfied with that. That feels nice. And on the overall year of the 74 movies now we have covered, this finds itself at 46. So,
a little.
That's
around halfway. A little bit under, but that makes sense for like Oppenheimer's and Little Women's.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of really good movies, so that's where the tough thing comes in. So, it's bottom 30, but just outside the top 45.
Yeah, for comic books, it was 13, I think, on average, in our just comic books. So that's I think 13. So almost top 10, not quite there. But I think the most important rating on this one of like where it stands amongst other movies is the enjoyment category here, like how rewatchable it is, how just it's. I can throw this on any day. But like I don't know what. Like I don't know. Even like Batman Begins, I know it's a way better made movie, but I think.
But I would also sooner throw this on than I would Batman Begins in a casual sense, for sure. Like the only reason I'm ever really watching Batman Begins is if I intend to watch the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Out of the Thor movies, like, where do you think you stand right now? Like, is the I don't know, because I think Ragnarok is like the most people's favorite, of like all the Thor movies. But I think like
I'll
this
have
one
to revisit it. I mean, Ragnarok and this are 1-2.
Yeah,
one way or another, and then Dark World and
probably
Love and Thunder
Dark World
3,
and
4.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Again, one way or
tiers.
another. Like it's just. And
Just
I think that would be
tiers.
the general consensus. I like when I look back on Ragnarok. I know I talked some shit on Taika Waititi a little bit ago, but
it's fun.
It's a fun fucking movie.
It is fun.
And Cate Blanchett is in it, so how mad can
Jeff
you really
Goldblum. You got Jeff Goldblum up in there.
Jeff Goldblum and Cate Blanchett. I mean, like that's on the back of that alone, it could be the best MCU movie for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was the Spike Lee Stanley cameo in this one?
He's the guy who cuts Thor's hair.
Yeah. Or that was in Ragnarok. I was talking this Thor movie. He was in a truck trying to pull Mjolnir out of the crater, and he's like, "Did it work?" Yeah, he's like, "Did it work?"
That was fun. But with that, I think we ought to conclude this episode of the Penny Bloom Podcast. If you would, head to patreon.com/PennyBloomPod, where you'll find over 50 hours of exclusive content, including all sorts of book reviews, comic book reviews, movie reviews, and the like. For $3 a month, you can support this podcast financially, which is huge because it costs me money and I don't make any off of it unless it's over there. Head to Twitter, follow at PennyBloomPod, follow on Instagram at PennyBloomPodcast. Remember to leave a 5-star rate and review wherever you might be listening and to continue downloading episodes. It's a huge help. We are continuing our comic book movie journey through film this next Friday with X-Men First Class, but in the meantime, we'll be celebrating. Is next week Christmas? Next week Christmas?
No, we got two more Mondays. Yeah, we got 2 more Mondays. Until then.
Gotcha. But in the meantime, then, before Christmas, we're going to watch Season 6, Episode 7 of Game of Thrones next Monday, and then we are going to cover our last Michael Mann movie prior to Ferrari next Wednesday in Collateral. And that's what we got. So we got to look forward to. But yeah, with that, I was Colton Robertson. I was joined by Joseph George. Thank you very much, homie.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, and it is always a pleasure to have you. And thank you very much, Tavares Pennington.
Oh, of course. Anytime.
Of course. Remember, peace, love, and bloom. And another.